South America, a continent of extremes, with the driest place in the world and the highest waterfall on Earth. Here, extraordinary is the norm, and where animals adapt to defy the odds. Many monsters rise from the deep in the Galapagos Islands.
They clash heads, not figuratively, but literally.
Don't mess with me, or you're gonna lose.
Savage turf wars rage high in the Andes.
These are not play fights. These are the real deal.
Unforgiving terrain with even less forgiving opponents.
If you got ideas above your station, you are quickly reminded your position in life.
Where even the toughest strive to survive.
They'll grab onto it, forcibly trying to remove the inhabitant.
I mean, they are essentially the neighbor from hell.
Every day, everywhere, our planet is a battleground. Turf wars, food fights, and mating mayhem rage on as animals outwit and outmaneuver their own kind in Battle of the Alphas. The Andes are the longest mountain range in the world, and amid the picturesque snow-capped peaks, a high-octane turf war is raging. It's Wanakaco warfare.
The Wanakos are humpless camels from South America, and these are the wild ancestors of the llama and the alpaca. Now, this is an animal that's really vicious and aggressive. The alpha males, to hold on to that territory, will fight by any means necessary.
A male Wanako is tactical. He doesn't fight for mates. He fights for land. If he has it, he wants to keep it. If he doesn't have it, he wants to get it. Because if he can control a good piece of ground with all the things a female wants, the mates will come to him.
So what he does is he defends an area where the females have to go anyway, somewhere where there's food, somewhere where there's water, and he sets up shop there and doesn't let any males close. The females have to come there for other reasons, and that's when he gets his opportunity to mate.
Wanakos don't have horns or antlers to fight with, but they do have knees. An aggressive male charges knee first into the ribs of his rival. There's a lot of power behind that hit.
This is one of the biggest mammals in South America. They're tall, they're long, and they're slender, but they are built like a truck. I mean, they weigh more than LeBron James.
And in close combat, nothing beats a bite, especially when it's aimed at the ears, the testicles, or the neck.
The vulnerable part of most mammals is the neck. That's where you see predators go. That's where all these blood vessels and nerves have to pass.
But actually, it's incredibly well defended. It's muscular. The hide is incredibly thick.
They've evolved a very, very tough patch of skin that runs all along it. So as Wanako are biting each other and hitting each other with the neck, that also is kind of their most protected place. That's where they've got the most padding.
Protection is good, but in battle, forewarned is forearmed.
You gotta read the room. You can tell it's coming. Now, normally the ears are just up like this. That's relaxed. Now, if the ears are forward, that means that they're alert. But if the ears go back, that means they're very angry. If the tail is going straight up, that also means they're angry. And a little snort means here comes trouble. A scream means we're doing this.
King of all he surveys, this alpha's not giving up his prime patch to anyone. In breeding season, he even gets aggressive towards his own kids born the previous year. With food resources stretched, something or someone has to go. Juveniles not ready to leave home try to pacify their dominant dad.
If a male comes at you, you don't have to fight. There are ways that a Wanako can show submission by crouching down, kind of mimics the nursing posture. And these are ways that they can avoid having a fight because fights can be deadly.
However, by 15 months old, all juvenile Wanakos are forced out of the only home they've ever known. But it's no walk in the park for those who stay.
It's tempting to think that maybe the male is aggressive towards other males, but then loving towards the females, but it turns out he's just really a bit of a jerk.
The females, of course, they're getting food, they're getting protection, and they're also getting accommodation. The males are not benevolent landlords waiting for them to come into season. He will quite often boss them around, push them around, bite them. So it's a little bit of a striking deal with the devil.
Family squabbles are one thing, but the real trouble kicks off when a cocky neighbor comes by to try and steal the alpha's turf. This isn't about keeping up with the Joneses. This is taking down the Joneses.
So when two males line up to have a battle, it is pretty serious stuff. The first thing is broadside, where basically they're sizing each other up. They get next to each other, they try to look as imposing as possible with the S-shaped neck and showing how big they are and standing up tall. And if that doesn't make one of them back down, then it comes to blows. And then all bets are off.
Added peril comes from the demanding landscapes they inhabit. In a fight, Wanakos have to literally hold their ground.
The feet of the Wanakos are amazing. They have two padded toes with fingernails. Now, these are quite squishy to the feel, and they've got enormous traction on those really difficult slopes with the rubble and the rocks. And that means they get such good traction, they can use that when they're fighting, when they're fleeing their opponent. It's an animal that has perfectly designed feet for its terrain.
But that's not all. These battles are taking place at almost 15,000 feet above sea level, where most humans couldn't even walk without getting woozy. Yet Wanakos can run over 35 miles per hour, almost mountain goat-like in their alpine agility. This is possible because Wanakos are uniquely adapted to take battles to new heights.
One of the coolest things about Wanakos is their blood.
Their hemoglobin count is incredibly high. A teaspoon of Wanako blood has 68 million blood cells, 4 times the level you'd find in humans. So that means they can cope with the thin air, the low oxygen levels, and they've got that energy to expend that fighting at a high altitude.
These are not play fights. These are the real deal. They have big battles and they can get real injuries. They can have big chunks of flesh missing and they could be in serious trouble after one of these fights.
With a life expectancy of 25 years, this alpha will face many more turf wars. But for today, the victor's territory is secure. And that's what matters. Off the west coast of Ecuador lie the Galapagos Islands. They're some of the most volcanically active islands in the world. But a beach of lava rock suits one animal just fine. A marine iguana will fight to protect its patch.
Marine iguana is found on the harsh rocks of the Galapagos Islands. And the reason why they're there is because they swim into the oceans to feed on the seagrass because the adults are nearly entirely herbivorous.
Marine iguanas are the only iguanas who feed underwater.
You might be forgiven for thinking that they're fairly ponderous creatures, but get them in the ocean and they are amazing. They can swim underwater for half an hour on one breath.
Holding their breath is one thing, but these cold-blooded mini dinosaurs can lose up to 50 degrees Fahrenheit during a dive. In a constant fight for survival, they must battle the cold and the current.
Every time they want to feed, they are on a pretty tight leash. If they stay in the water too long, they will freeze to death.
So soaking up the sun on the hot lava rocks is essential for survival.
Most of the time, marine iguanas are the best of friends. But when it comes to mating season, everything goes out the window.
During the mating season, these regularly docile adult male marine iguanas become very, very territorial.
Males form these areas called leks that they defend. They don't defend the females. They defend the area. If you've got a really nice space, well, Melissa's going to stay and Mercedes will as well. Even Donna's going to come round. So it is worth fighting for a really decent piece of rock, and they do know how to fight.
If a rival sets his sights on someone else's patch of rock, the threat displays start.
They will walk lengthwise in front of the competitors. Say, look how big I am, look how long I am, I'm huge, don't mess with me.
Things start off with a lot of posturing. So you will see them standing really quite tall on their legs, but also quite stiffly. They then will pull their frills up.
They have their dorsal crest, their spines on their back, and those will become more rigid and kind of stand more on end.
Finally, you get the head bobbing, which is a classic of lizards.
They kind of open their mouths and they bob their heads really vigorously. It's almost funny to watch because to us, it doesn't look tough. But to other marine iguanas, they're saying, don't mess with me or you're gonna lose.
All right, Sunshine, do you want some? Do you want some? I'll take you on.
If the challenger returns the threat display,
They get very much in each other's faces and they're going to continue to try to threaten the other one to back off.
And if that isn't enough, they clash heads. Not figuratively, but literally.
They really try to like push each other, and if they can get a good grip, they might try to flip the other or roll the other one over.
interlocking the horny scales on their crown, each one tries to push its opponent away. They can keep it up for hours, butting heads like stags. But their spiked heads aren't their only weapon.
The arms and legs on the marine iguana have got those fantastic claws on there, great for scrabbling over the rocks and taking a swipe at someone.
Their distinct laterally compressed tails act like a paddle underwater and make them graceful swimmers, but in battle become gladiator-style weapons.
They have incredibly strong tails, almost like a mace, studded and very rigid, and so they will whip each other with their tails periodically as a means of fighting.
Marine iguanas almost never fight to the death, only until one backs down. But fights can be deadly all the same. Consumed in combat, it's hard to look out for predators.
In the heat of battle, these marine iguanas have to avoid any type of attacks from predators, but that can be incredibly difficult. So they've evolved a third eye on the top of their head.
This retina-like structure can sense light and shadow.
This semi-transparent scale connects directly to a part of their brain, allows them a superb early warning system.
Useful defense from predators, but no help against a rival marine iguana. When these fearsome miniature monsters fight, it's a battle of strength. Though the winner secures his share of females by pushing the rival off his rocks, there's still hope for the loser.
Because they defend territories and not females, if a female's moving through territories, you might be able to sidle up to her and give her a really good one-liner, and perhaps, who knows, you might get lucky.
Though the stronger iguana usually wins, these fights are mostly ritual. But today, the alpha spot is no place for a new kid on the rock. 4,000 miles away, off the southern tip of South America, are the Faulland Islands. This is where striated caracaras nest. These raptors have one hard and fast rule: respect your elders at mealtime. If not, when a bird finds food, it makes a loud cry, announcing to other striated caracaras in the area that dinner is served. They don't like to eat alone, but they don't want to share either.
When a carcass is located, they make calls to attract others in the group. Because there's many of them, there's less chance of them themselves being predated.
Safety in numbers is extra important for the youngsters. These dull-colored juveniles and subadults with brown streaks flock around the food. That is, until the large adult birds with their yellow faces and fine silvery striations on their necks and shoulders arrive, because they expect VIP access.
With striated caracaras, there's definitely a hierarchy according to how old, mature, and experienced you are. It takes about 5 years to gain that experience and that full adult plumage that says, I'm the man.
The pecking order must be respected. If not, the intimidation begins.
They'll throw their heads back. They've got quite big wingspans, so they throw it out. It's called mantling, and that's to intimidate their rivals. Look how big I am. Look at my adult plumage. They'll run at birds and create mock charges, and that will force the juvenile birds to back away from a carcass they may be eating on.
If the juvenile moves aside for the senior bird and waits its turn, all is well. If it doesn't, the elder will make its position clear.
They'll get much more than a clip round the ear. They will get a beating.
If you got ideas above your station, you are quickly reminded as to where you are and your position in life at that moment.
And nowhere is safe. Attacks on subordinate birds happen both in the air and on the ground.
So when an adult striated caracara turns up, the youngsters had better move aside, otherwise they might get really seriously beaten.
But some young rebels still refuse to fall in line.
There's the awkward adolescent years. They join up with loads of other adolescent thugs and can form groups of 20 or 30, working to mob rule every beak and talon to itself. But as they slowly move up that hierarchy and become more experienced, that's when they'll try and mix it with the big boys.
When the meal is small, things get real tense, real fast.
The adult caracaras will fight by any means necessary. They've got that huge big bill, but also those talons. We're talking 3 forward and 1 back talons. And when they whack a bird, they can really knock it back.
You see this bird lift its foot and deliver a karate kung fu kick to its opponent to basically remind it, but hang on, don't get too happy now. I'm the main bird around here.
They can use those talons, pinning down for kind of seconds and really thrashing down into the ground the young, inexperienced caracaras.
But the young birds learn fast.
They have been credited as being one of the most intelligent of birds of prey.
They've got incredible problem-solving abilities. So if they're not big enough and experienced to actually compete at the meal table, what they'll do is they'll sit, take notes, and learn how to do it better next time. And that's why they're so successful.
The smartest birds may avoid battle altogether. A juvenile who retaliates against its elder risks a fight and may go hungry. But the subordinate who shows deference may have a better chance to slip in and grab a bite. It's a win-win. The mature bird has proven its dominance, and the young upstart is allowed to continue feeding. Whether they bow out gracefully or battle like brutes, the fight is over when the older bird takes its seat at the head of the table. Though South America has nearly 16,000 miles of coastline, the competition in this real estate market is fierce. Hermit crabs don't grow shells of their own. They recycle and move into old shells.
You look at something like a lobster, it's clearly armor-plated, but not the hermit crab. So they have to protect that, and in doing so, they use the shells of mollusks. So your snails, your abalones, whatever.
The hermit crab's front half is covered with a hard exoskeleton, but their soft abdomen is extremely vulnerable without a shell. A home upgrade isn't just desirable, it's life and death. If another hermit crab comes by in a better shell, they attack, grabbing at it with all their might in a bid to steal the home right off the owner's back. Most of the over 800 species of hermit crab live in the ocean, where new homes are abundant. But for the roughly 15 species that live on the beach,
it's a very crowded housing market. They're not the only one that wants that shell. A new shell can mean that they've got more space to grow. It could be stronger than their old shell, and it's worth fighting for. It will start banging its own shell repeatedly against the shell that it wants. And in doing so, it's showing its vigor, it's showing its energy to cause so much annoyance to the occupant that they leave. I mean, they are essentially the neighbor from hell.
Under attack, the resident crab withdraws into its shell, muscular backside hanging on tight, and chelipeds at the ready.
Chelipeds are the pinchers, or the forearms of these creatures, and they use them both to grab onto and to grasp, but they also use them to pound on the shells of potential homes. Individuals will go up to another, they'll grab onto it. They'll start rapping at it with their chelipeds and actually forcibly trying to remove the inhabitant.
But the incumbent hermit crab, he likes where he lives. He's got all his feng shui sorted. He doesn't want to go. That's when hermit crabs who are determined to get rid of the resident crab, climbing on top of the shells, putting their claws into the shell and physically pulling the other crab out.
For these crabs, it can be a constant battle for a new home.
When they molt their old exoskeleton, swell up with fluid, form a new hard exoskeleton, and then as they start to grow again, they're replacing fluid with actual cells. So in their shell, they need to have the space to grow.
And a new, larger exoskeleton needs a new, larger home. But it's a mistake to go too big too soon.
Crabs that have larger shells are almost immediately evicted because there'll be a bigger crab that wants that shell, so it'll just pull them out.
However, canny crabs may not need to fight for it. When 3 or more hermit crabs meet up, something unusual happens. A house swap. An eager crowd gathers to trade up.
A bunch of crabs may actually end up forming a kind of conga line, if you will.
You can get these huge, long lines of hermit crabs going from the biggest all the way down to the smallest.
This mollusk moving line works well, until
the problem comes when you have crabs that are all the same size vying for one shell. When multiple crabs have left their old shells to try and get a new shell, they've been beaten out, and just like musical chairs, they're left out in the cold.
Being left homeless is not an option.
The worst case scenario, if a crab does get kicked out of its shell, is death. They will very, very quickly get munched or even die of dehydration. Because they are still crustaceans, they do still have gills, and so being fully exposed to the sun essentially cooks them in their own juices.
So, when a crab finds the right shell, it wants to move in fast. The right fit is crucial. Too large, it may fall off. Too small, it won't be safe. But any shell is better than no shell, even if it has a hole.
Individual hermit crabs that are in suboptimal shells, ones that are potentially too big, too small, or damaged, they really have their work cut out for them.
If you've got a crab with a broken shell, they are willing to risk it all for a new piece of real estate, and that will make them fight harder to get into a brand new, safer shell.
To avoid a life of constant battles, it's believed that hermit crabs develop a preferred shell type. Just as we hone our fashion style with age, hermit crabs narrow down competition by favoring certain types of shells.
So you will get crabs that will fight harder for specific shells from specific snail species, as opposed to it always being a free-for-all.
Fewer fights, but harder fought. Though fitting into a new home isn't the only twist in their tale.
Fantastic thing about the hermit crab is it's neither a hermit nor a crab. They're actually a type of squat lobster. Complete misnomer. Not hermits, not crabs, just legends, really.
Legends constantly in search of their ideal abode. The fight for the perfect beachfront home continues. South America, where it's not the altitude that takes your breath away, mini Godzillas take the heat on the rocks, and diners risk dinner with a kick. This is a combat zone for a special kind of warrior. Here, whoever dares wins.